I'm writing a memoir, and one of the hardest things to do in writing a memoir is to write about the people in your life. I'm not talking about the people who don't want to be written about or concerned about how they're going to be written about. That's a whole nother video. I'm talking about how to turn the people in your life into characters. I know in a memoir we're really talking about people, and it might seem strange to call people characters, but essentially that's what people are in a memoir. They're characters. I know a lot of writers like to share backstories for their characters in the beginning of a book to give a little history, for example, for a character. But I feel this often bogs down a story for a reader, and I think it's a lot better way to allow a reader to get to know your characters through sprinkling in little details about your characters in scenes. These little moments can really build up to shape your characters and to give character to your characters so they become three-dimensional with depth without you having to give a lot of backstory that can kind of veer your story away from the main plot. So I want to show you how you can add character to your characters just by focusing on little moments that you layer throughout your story that will show what your characters are like. Basically, we're talking about showing, not telling in your writing, and also the literary technique called characterization, where you show what characters are like by little things they say or do. So as I like to do, I want to share a quick snippet from my own writing so you can see what I'm talking about, how you can create these little moments to really develop your characters. And then I'll come back and share a few thoughts on characterization in the passage, hopefully how I succeeded at creating some characterization. This is a scene from my memoir when I took my son to a kids' comedy show in Hollywood. I think he was 8 at the time, and I did not tell my wife we were going. Dominic and I are sitting in the front row for Second City's The Really Awesome Improv Show and watching a female actress with pink hair and blue eyes cluck like a chicken as she officiates a wedding for Michael Jackson when I receive a text from Lisa. "Where are you?" it says. The bride and groom moonwalk across the small stage after the chicken clucks. The king of pop may now kiss the bride. And the newlyweds bust out doing the funky chicken dance to celebrate becoming husband and wife. And I think about how to respond to Lisa's text. At a kids' improv show, I text back. I look up from her text as the chicken clucks, "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream." And Michael Jackson and his bride paddle down a stream with big smiles on their faces, and I feel like my boat is about to be sunk by incoming artillery. "Where?" she asks. Rest of the scene. And it goes from there to the rest of the scene. And let's focus on the characterization of the scene, especially on the character that I know best, myself. From this little snippet, we can learn quite a bit about myself as a character, just from the little things that I say or do. Let's look at the text again. My son and I are at a kids' comedy show when I get a text from my wife. Let's look at my reaction in the text. It says I think about how to best respond to her text. That should show you something is kind of amiss here. Something's not right if I have to think about how I'm going to respond to a text. These little details sprinkled into the text tell you a little bit about the character, me. For example, why didn't I just tell my wife, where were we? They also tell you about a little bit about the nature of the relationship between me and my wife. And they allow a reader to get to know you as characters rather than you dumping a lot of information in a backstory. Next, after Michael Jackson moonwalks across the stage and does the funky chicken dance, as I'm thinking about how to respond to the text, Michael Jackson starts singing, "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream." And if you look at my reaction in the story, it says I feel like I'm about to sink in my own boat. That's a metaphorical boat. And that shows you, or should tell you something about me. It tells you I'm nervous about how to respond to this text. And that should tell you something about me and something about my relationship with my wife. Here's one last snippet. This is at the end of the scene when my son and I got home from the kids' comedy improv show. Later that night, Dominic comes into my bedroom with only a towel wrapped around his waist after taking a shower. He introduces himself as Caveman Jack, and I say the first thing that pops into my head to see if we can create an improv scene. What's up, Caveman Jack? That's a stylish outfit you got on there. And he says something, and I say something back to what he says, and we go back and forth in an improvised scene that could have fit into the really awesome improv show. From this little passage, you can see the effect the improv show had on Dominic. He wasn't ready to go on stage during the show, but you can see when we got home, he had absorbed the principles of improv through the improv scene that we created later that night with Caveman Jack. And one of my goals in taking him to the improv show was not just to introduce him to improv acting. He's been in several plays already, but as a kid on the autism spectrum, sometimes his social communication is not as fluid. So I thought improv would be a great way to kind of help him improve, just becoming more fluid in back and forth conversation. And there it happened at the end of the scene. So what I hope you're taking away from this video is that you can layer in little details about your characters through scenes. And that's probably a better way to allow readers to get to know your characters than a lot of backstory. Some backstory is good to give a little context to your characters, but I think too much backstory just bogs your story down. People want to read a story about your characters and see that story unfolding. They don't want to see or read a lot of backstory. I make 2 writing-related videos per week to help you improve as a writer along with me. So don't forget to click the subscribe button. The whole point is to stay motivated and try to get better as a writer. That's my goal, and I hope it's your goal too. Happy writing, everybody.